And welcome to the first Wordsmith writing tutorial for February. Our prompt for this week is 223, which is the painting. Task is to write a short narrative from the point of view of a canvas or painting. How does it feel about becoming art? How does it feel about the artist and his process? So remember, you'll find all the notes I've made and tips and extension tasks on my blog, which is Wordsmith Creative Writing, all one word, .blogspot.com. So let's start with the starter. Now, you've come across simile and metaphor in your everyday school life generally, which is the use of a comparison to describe a noun. And you've probably come across extended metaphors where you continue the theme of comparison over a few lines or paragraphs. Now, often taught alongside simile and metaphor is personification. Things like the sun was smiling or the storm raged, for example. Personification is a technique where you give human attributes to non-human objects. Now, characterising, that is making a character out of an inanimate object, is essentially an extended personification, which is what this prompt is asking us to do. So, for our starter task, we should really explore how we can characterise inanimate objects. And firstly, we should really think about what a character needs. Now, this goes for inanimate or for living creatures in general. And I think it's best to work in terms of questions to kind of create a profile. So my four kind of builder questions here is 1, the intention of the character, so what does it want? 2, its emotion, so how does it feel about its life? 3, how does its shape or use or appearance affect how it behaves? And 4, how does it sound? So it sounds a little bit abstract in that way. So I've picked up my piggy bank, and this is his profile. Okay, his intention is he wants to be filled with quality coins, not just copper and silver. His emotion, he is full but unsatisfied. The bung is only just hanging on, and the weight he's carrying is unworthy, is lowly. His personality, the flag on his back makes him feel ambitious and driven to be great. He has big ideas but feels trapped in his place. And his voice, for this character, the voice is kind of big and pompous. He's kind of a politician, that really kind of Winston Churchill-y kind of thing. So, looking at that, I hope you can see where I've taken the physical characteristics of an object and created the beginnings of a character. You could now tell a story from the piggy bank's point of view. You know what he's after, you know what he feels about his life, so you can build on that. So here is a picture of a few random objects I've picked from around the house. So I want you to pick one of these or one of your own and create a character profile for it based on intention, emotion, personality and voice. Try a couple if you like. I'm going to put a couple of other examples on the blog. So this should take you about 5 minutes. So hopefully you've been able to see how you can create a character from an inanimate object. And now we need to build a profile for a painting. Now on screen here I'm going to show you details about some well-known paintings and their artists. If you want to, you can go to Google and find your favourite artist and pick a picture of your own. But you shouldn't be wasting your time on the detailed research. Just look at the picture, what it's painted with, and a couple of things about the artist. I've gone onto Wikipedia and picked out a couple of quotes. A couple of minutes of that, don't really take too much time with that because that's going to take too much time from everything else. And in terms of art and painting, there are some interesting things that you could use. Now, something I know about oil painting is that they often take weeks to dry. And when modern scientists have taken x-rays of the old masters, they can see where half-finished things have been scraped off before the actual paint is laid on top. So this idea of scraped canvas, like something waiting to become something, that is an interesting seed of an idea. That's why a lot of the options I've put on the screen here are oil paints. So you could think about how a painting feels about being scraped off. So this is the profile I've gone for. I've picked Edward Hopper's Nighthawks as mine. So its intention is to be completed, to know what it is. Its emotion is a desperation to have an identity and an aspiration to satisfy its artist. Its personality is eager to please. It's like a it's like a patient needing various painful surgeries to be healed. This idea of accepting being scraped off because eventually it will be better. And the voice is kind of a quiet, pleading, hopeful kind of voice. So now you should be able to add a bit more detail to your profile here, because the task asks for a couple of questions to be included in the writing, or a couple of answers. The first is, how does the canvas or painting feel about being art? How does it feel about becoming art? Now, this is your choice, not necessarily the character's choice. But if you want your character to hate modern art and have a modern art artist, then that's kind of a conflict that you can build in. If you want a character who hates dark colours, and you've got a really kind of dark and kind of dingy Renoir or something, then again you've got that contrast of ideas. My second kind of question is, how does it feel about his artist or his process? As I said, with oil paints, it takes so long to dry. That means the artist can take a very long time to actually build up layers and colours and whatnot. So you can have a painting that in watercolour or something like that would take maybe a couple of hours, whereas in oils you can take days or more. So how does the object of the artist feel about the artist? That's a nice, interesting commentary on things. So I want you to take a good 10 or 15 minute look at your chosen painting. Think about its character, answer those 4 questions, and then answer these 2 task questions for yourself to help you plan. So 10, maybe 15 minutes. So by now you've got a fairly good foundation to create a narrative piece, but we should focus on the planning to make sure you've got that flow and the ideas that come out. So this is a simple planning table that you can use to get your thoughts in order. So you've got 5 boxes: who, where, what, but, and then details. So who is obviously the characters, where is your location, what is what do the characters want, but there's always got to be a problem, there's got to be something they've got to overcome. And then details and vocab choices, so things like particular language choices you want to use, particular words, or things like my knowledge of oil paints and how they're used, you could put into your details and vocab choices. So with this grid you can break down your narrative ideas to key points really quickly, and then add on details and interesting vocab that you can use. So this is my planning grid for this task. So I've basically brought down the ideas that I've had during the planning process into this little grid. I haven't put in details and vocab because that kind of comes in the writing process for me. But you might have a couple of words, a couple of terms you want to use, you want to drop into that. So at the beginning of this writing task, I want you to take a good 5 minutes to draw out your own table and then go on to plan your paragraphs. You should write 4 or 5 paragraphs for this task, and remember it's a narrative, so it needs beginning, middle and end, and it shouldn't all be description. So try and pick out a few details from your painting so that it's kind of clear what the painting is, so it's describing itself being made. And this task kind of needs more focus than I usually ask for, so I think you should take at least 5 minutes on that plan, and then you should be writing for 20 minutes. Or thereabouts. If you're finished in 15, that's fine, but around 20 is where you should be planning for 4 or 5 paragraphs. So 25 minutes, go. Okay, so I expect that some of you found that quite a slog. Characterising inanimate objects can be difficult to start with. So you might find it handy to try those 4 points: emotion, intention, personality and voice, to create characters for inanimate objects around you. Just do it as a kind of a practice run for other things, because you might find that having an awareness of point of view might be interesting and useful for you in future creative writing projects. And I know there are more prompts that call on a point of view from an odd angle, so you'll find that handy. Reflection questions for this one are: I like or dislike the character of this painting because. Now it's more down to your opinion. You don't have to like all your characters. In fact, I think it's sometimes easier to write a character if you don't like them. because you can be quite kind of vitriolic against them if you want to. And next question is, one part I like is because, and the next question is, one thing I struggled with was, so next time I will. All the questions run in this sort of pattern, and I'll be looking at the reflection questions and what you can do with them in next week's video. So I'm going to read you my writing task, just to remind you that you'll find the reflection, the extension tasks, tips and notes for all of this on the blog, which is wordsmithcreativewriting.blogspot.com. Balanced over the trash can, he scrapes the pigment and oil from my face, peeling away my identity, my meaning. How can I be anything if he cannot decide what I should be? This is the third time I've been scraped clean and half a dream. I feel flayed and naked, even with the scraps of old ideas still staining my face. He grunts and finishes burying my fibres before he leans me up against the studio wall. He lights up a cheroot and moves on to another. The days we spent together in composition forgotten like another empty affair. I'm left alone, searing and raw like a burn. When my surface is eventually dry, he takes me from the stack of forlorn, flayed former subjects and clamps my frame to the easel. With a few lazy strokes, he fills my muddled emptiness with dark shades of lank black and Prussian blue. He stares at sketchbooks with manic purpose, lighting cheroot after cheroot, filling the air with yellow smoke and the scent of bourbon. After the dark shades, he begins to work in light, stark chalky white flashes of ochre gold. Faces appear with a twist of bristles staring out. With final furious touches, he scrapes and scribbles blocks of colour over colour, adding shades and blending. For a time he looks at me, never raising his brush, smoking with intense eyes, evaluating my youthfulness, deciding whether my destiny lies with the scraper and the trash can again. I wait. Days pass as he lets the paint dry, occasionally lifting the brush, filling the bristles with colour, then washing them clean again in the jar of terps. It's more painful, this tension, this wandering, hoping to be what I am, to hold all that he's made of me. He unscrews the clamps and carries me across the room, not again. I float past the trash can, relief lightening my mind as he reaches for a pen and flips me onto my face, ready to give me a name. I have made it past his scrutiny. I am Nighthawks. Okay, I'm going to draw next week's. We are 155, which is Swinging in No Wind. Ooh, it's going to be a spooky one. See you next week.